Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you all here. Thank
You too. Good to see everyone.
Good to see and be seen.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we last time the four of us were all together, we were all on Vision Quest out at Rock Point in the desert near Joshua Tree. And we had a little conversation around wanting to continue connecting around this idea of listening together to nature, the big nature and our inner nature and how it's all connected and how that can bring us all back to um, just more joyful, loving lives. So I'm really excited that we're making that happen.
Oh,
Yeah. I'd love to just go around and everyone just share like how you're feeling right now and what you feel like is most present in your listening.
okay.
Yeah. Popcorn style, whoever feels like jumping
What's
in.
what's most present in our listening? Is that how you phrased it?
Yeah. Yeah. What's coming up when you think of this concept of listening?
Well, for me, you guys okay if I just respond here? Um, just dropping in. Okay, so what's most important about listening? Um, the being alive in this moment. The universe is communicating its wisdom to me, to us, in and through our bodies. You might say internally and in the external field, recognizing that perception of separation is an illusion ultimately. So the universe is communicating to us right now, bringing information. What's it communicating? It's bringing us information about how it's manifesting in this moment in our personal lives and in the world channel of what is happening that we all experience in different ways. So if I want to be in, if I want to squeeze the juice out of being alive in this moment, because this is the moment I have to experience whatever I want to experience. No guarantee of next breath. This is it. So it's important for me to pay attention to the truth of what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing to get that information, so I can be in for me a good relationship with it that helps me experience love's presence, spirit's presence, and the gifts of life, just like being able to see you guys. My vision is getting worse as I well, let's say my external vision is weakening as I'm getting older, but that helps me with my inner vision to feel, and I'm happy to be able to see what I can see with my eyes now, because I don't know how long I'll be able to do it, but I can do it right now. So paying attention to right now of being alive, happy to see you guys, and so that's what comes up for me about being present to listening. All right.
What came up for me is I feel like I need help right now from one of you doing a little like grounding, breathing, dropping in so that I can feel like my heart and mind and everything feels more open in my body to listening. I don't know about any of you, but I just feel a little challenged in that space right now. Um, and my body's like, just go on a hike or just go to the beach right now. But I have commitments, and I'm super happy to actually be here with you. But yeah, if either of you is feeling, any of you are feeling called to lead me and anyone else who might be listening in the future in a little meditation to open up and listen more, I'd be super grateful.
Yeah, so just don't want to say up front, I can always do that. I'm always glad to do that. I'm always happy to do that. And I already gabbed for a while, so I'm going to give Brother Shareef and Brother Andrew opportunity to one of you guys to bring us through the kind of meditation Kimberly's asking for.
As you know, it was interesting as you were speaking. One of the things that came to my space, well, two. First is that I said, what's the difference between heart and earth? And uh, it's just the arrangement of the letters in the word, the exact same letter. And then being in this space, at first, I'm just holding a lot of gratitude and listening. I heard listening. And the wind, that is here, and just listening and trying to recognize in both gratitude and attunement, that we are privileged enough to be here alive and vibrating on this earth right now in connection and communion, setting the intention of being here and inviting an invitation to invite that medicine from the earth into our space. And then I think about the breath, that's that sacred breath. And an elder once told me that the first thing you lose when you hold your breath is not your brain capacity, your heart capacity, but consciousness. And consciousness is what unites us all. The breath, that sacred breath, is that consciousness that flows through us all. So when I think about breathing exercises and mindfulness, I think about right now, we are part of the earth. Our hearts are all here connected together, and then that deep breath in, where you inhale into the stomach and filling the stomach up, but only exhale from the lungs shortly, and breathe into the stomach again. And do that about 5 times. Into the stomach. And on that 5th time, hold that breath and notice what it brings in your body, allowing it to permeate every cell that's there, and sit with that. Almost as if you're up beneath water and it's surrounding you. And you can feel it. And then when you exhale, release it, and then hold the exhale, just holding it there. You might be able to feel your heartbeat. And then begin again one more time with the rapid, the into your stomach, filling it up. Exhale from the lungs. Into the stomach. Exhale from the lungs. And on the last inhale, hold once again. And allow that breath just to sit with you. Then the exhale. As I held my breath, I'm reminded of the times I've been in Kauai swimming in the water, the ocean with the turtles. And I'm holding my breath, but there's so much life and so much gratitude. And I come up and I breathe that sacred breath, that oxygen that fuels us all. So that's what comes from me.
Oh, I'm Brios.
Thank you, Shareef. I'm thinking about self-consciousness. I don't know why it comes to me, but this idea of breath and consciousness, and how nature, we might be the only things in nature that are self-conscious, in a way of both good and bad, judging ourselves or thinking, we're separate in some way from nature. And I think about that breath and that regulation, and how just being in nature is like regulating me all the time. And it's like wanting to regulate me. It's like its intention is like, oh, young human, like, it's okay. Like, calm down. It's okay. And just being with you guys and community, and how it, like, all we're really doing too is regulating each other and trying to sync with nature and be reminded that it's okay. And yeah, so I thank you, Shareef, for helping me regulate and remember that.
Hey,
Like
we're
we're all
co-regulating.
each other's, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we're co-regulating together. This is jazz right here. This is
Mhm.
this is our music. We're playing
And,
together.
You guys notice that, and as we look at the image of you, Andrew, you've got antlers growing out of your head.
Hi.
Let me put it on a bigger screen.
Like
Oh
that.
yeah, there's some tree antlers coming
Right.
out.
It's a deer spirit, Kayamari, coming through you, growing up out of you. Your antennas out there to help you listen better and help all of us listen better. Oh,
Right. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for that, Shareef. And it does strike me. I've never been a scuba diver, but I remember Dad used scuba diving and other friends. And what is the thing that is it like your BC regulator or something that you use as you're going
yeah,
down?
your BC, you let the air out of your BC and then you lower at the rate you let the air out.
Well, I don't know if I'm referencing the right thing that then, but like that we all help regulate each other. That's so true. And I just think of how that happens like in families and in work situations and any relationships, how we just read off of each other's energy and pick that up for good and challenge. And and nature, we're doing the same thing with the trees and the earth and the ocean around us too. And Andrew, you talk a lot about like nature, like just wants us to like, well, love it or fall back in love with it, and in doing so we like fall back in love with ourselves or some. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And
Yeah. I think in that self-reflection of our own judgment as humans, it's easy to kind of like get sucked into this silo of self and I guess the ego small self. And um, when you're looking outside of yourself and you recognize kind of the bigger self, which is like not separate from the small self, um, there's like this resting, I guess, in um, the beauty that you are everything, that everything that you see is a reflection of you. And so to like lift up the things, there was something I was listening, I think it was Krista Tippett this morning about humility. And she said that humility isn't like the shrinking of the self, it's the lifting up of the other. And I thought that was like so beautiful in this way of like, oh yeah, we don't have to get small. We just have to like look outside ourselves and make everything else want to be big in this way. I don't know why it it just hit me. Because I think part of the gateway to like falling back in love is like um, that humility. It's like that piece of getting outside the small self and recognizing that like there's no separation. Um, and like, yeah, got, I don't know, there's it's like construction going on around me. There's a weed whacker that just started in my next door neighbor. And it's like all of this is like also part of nature in some way, even though it's like this man-made distractions.
well,
But
I don't hear it at all.
oh, you do?
We
You
No,
can't
don't?
hear
Great.
anything except
no.
you
Okay.
speaking.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds so
Good.
that's
So it's
great.
only my own distraction.
Yeah, exactly. So now you just have to manage
That's what it always comes down to.
It does. It honestly does.
that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my piece. But
You're mentioning humility as an important dynamic in the listening. So I'm reminded, going back to our Vision Quest experiences that we shared, each in our own way, that the first medicine that came for me was humility through having setting my tent up wrong and collapsing in the wind. So busting of any ego pretensions to the recognition on a certain level. Welcome the holy fool who bumbles and stumbles, and accept that as part of my humanity, and open to larger presence, the breath of the spirit through the big wind that was pushing the tent in. So just associating freely.
And just to be clear for those that weren't there, you're meaning that literally, like the first night of quest, the tent set up wrong and the wind and the tent poles.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it's a good metaphor too. Like, right, we think we're like setting up our structures all right around us. And then all it takes is like one night of big winds to come, and we're like, ah,
Yep.
now what, right? So how do I reground this morning as I wake up, or this moment in my day as yeah, it's an ongoing exercise, that's for sure. Um, I'm curious what, like what comes up for you when you just think of this, like what does listening mean to each of you? And using listening, well, yeah, just what does listening mean to you?
But for me, off the very top, what comes to me as I remember you, Mrs. Beasley, my father's mother, my grandmother, this amazing, beautiful soul who, as a matter of fact, at her funeral, uh, she spent her whole life using her hands and cleaning homes and from Memphis, Tennessee. And so, as a respect to her, my father, we were all dressed up, and rather than have the the uh, the machine push the earth over her, we had several shovels, and everyone had to take a shovel, and we spent time rotating, shoveling this earth. This act of giving, respecting, and showing gratitude for her, Mrs. Beasley. And I kept that shovel, my shovel, the shovel I had the whole time. I shoveled that in, and but her words were, when listening, whenever I was talking too much, she said, God gave you two ears and one mouth. Obviously, he wanted you to use one more than the other. In her very Southern Memphis, Tennessee tone, I hear her voice. I can feel her in the most loving way. And the other thing was that listening is that, sometimes I would come home from school when I would, and she was there, and I may have had a rough day, and and she would look at me and she would say, "What's wrong?" And I'd be like, "Oh, everything's great. No, no, there's no problem at all." And she would remain silent and say, "Have a seat." I'd sit at the dining room table and she'd go to the fridge and she already had these taffy cookies. Oh, I loved them. They were these crunchy oatmeal outside exterior and this taffy, and oh, so delicious. And she would get that and a cup of milk and she'd put it in front of me and just sit with me for a second. And I she says, after a while, I'd eat it. And she says, I hear what you don't say. And I always held that as something of being able to attune to, sometimes we can get lost in words, but there's many forms of communication. Nature has so many ways of communicating with us, and doesn't even our four-legged relatives, our two-legged relatives, the celestial life, the trees, all of this, the water doesn't necessarily use our words, but if we listen, Kimberly, as you so wisely told us and taught us and shared with us from your vision quest, I have all the answers you need. All you have to do is just listen. And that's attunement and paying attention and hearing and lastly, because I've been doing a lot of talking, and so I want to listen a little bit myself. But I look at it through a eco-therapeutic lens in space. And recently I was with a cohort of these young therapists who were learning how to integrate um, ecotherapy into their practice. And we were reviewing, the intake form that we had. And this form had a lot built in around, informing, the potential client who's coming into the space of how to be prepared to be in the space and what you should help support them with and help them make them aware of. However, what it didn't have is an integration of the land itself, is recognizing that the land is as much as a in this coexistence as much as the client and as much as you as the practitioner. So the challenge became the reimagination in a very, I think the word you share with me was biophilia. Was that Was that the word? This love for nature is to also integrate the land might have something, a different relationship with your client. And how do you hold a space, a therapeutic space with giving the land opportunity to say, hey, look, am I welcome here? Is this giving the client an opportunity to say, am I welcome here? And drop in as we did in the beginning and feel and listen and hear and then move accordingly, you know? So when you speak of listening and things, this tapestry comes to my heart, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me like imagine if every time that we came into a new situation or gathering or place that we always left room to bring in like the spirits of the place, the energy of the place, the trees around us, the ocean, earth behind us. Um, I mean, I know the four of us often do that with like ancestor spirits and stuff like that. But what do you think might happen if that started becoming part kind of more the norm? But like as you come into a family gathering, you sit down in the living room and each person's bringing their own stuff, or a family meal, or you sit down to a board meeting and said something around like let's bring in a little bit of that tree or that plant that's sitting here with us.
We'd be better informed.
Or would we get kicked out of the room?
Shocking in many ways.
Never
Yeah.
know how anybody's going to react, and that we're not responsible for how other people respond, but honoring our integrity for whatever it means for us to do our deepest listening, again, to the information coming, like Shareef, you're pointing out, coming from Mother Earth. She's always given us information about how to be in respectful relationship with her changing moods and currents and winds and tides if we're paying attention.
Yeah.
So,
I think of like growing up because of your work with Indigenous people, and so how that impacted my childhood and life. A lot of the things that were sort of normal in our family, around talking to trees, giving. I mean, I remember literally when we'd be just out playing out in the yard, we'd been taught it was normal before you picked a flower to like thank the flower for its life and give something back, whether it was like a piece of hair or even just a little of your saliva in a respectful way or something. And and taking some deep breaths, meditating, doing the om sound before dinner, and mindfulness and all that. And now, like, if you think of how much a lot of that actually has shifted, I mean, like just like yoga, a lot of the practices that have come into more modern contemporary culture around yoga, in the best ways possible, and mindfulness, that whole movement. I feel like a lot of the things that we're talking about right now around listening to nature and recognizing our oneness with it. There's certainly a going back to the wisdom of the ancient traditions where that was just normal, but I feel like we're part of this movement that is growing again right now to return to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the question. I'm sorry, Andrew. Yeah, please.
Oh no. If you want to go for it, Shareef.
Uh, hey, well, thank you for giving me a space to riff today. You know, he gave me, all right, I'm riffing, but, just interesting, fact is this past weekend, or story, I say, is that this past weekend, I was, in a, training with the past president of American Psychological Association, the APA, Psychological Association. We're all sitting around, and it's in this room, and it was a 2-day gathering. And second day, I decided to bring a beautiful bouquet just of flowers arrangement and set it right in the area that I'm sitting. And he asked, he said, is this a celebration? Is this someone's birthday? Is this, I said, I'm always surprised at how often I come into spaces and there's no plant life here.
Mhm.
So I really wanted to invite this into the space as just an offering and a sharing and see how we felt, you know. And
Mm.
he said in all of his years of trainings and work, he had never had anyone simply bring in a uh, a bouquet of flowers for the sake of inviting it into the space and being a part of that. And these are some of the little ways that, as you were asking your question, that it's we kind of reconnect from being separated from nature, and and inspire, I think, others as well to reimagine what is it like to be in community with nature on a daily basis. What is that? What is it? How does that show up, I guess, in all of our lives? As I'm curious, is to be in community with your eldest relative, how does that show up for you?
Yeah, I think part of why we, well, originally called this was, I think you said, Shareef, about inviting nature in as into the conversation, and this idea of like not using nature as like a tool or something that is going to like help us progress in some way or heal, or it's like allowing this like space for the unknown, which is, I think, I don't know, I keep thinking about listening as like a space for the unknown, for like something magical to happen. Um, and the difference between even like listening to you, Shareef, speak and holding something that I want to say is like me holding on to something versus, just being with truly whatever is coming out. I have no idea what you're gonna say. Being like curious and being like, oh yeah, let's see like how that moves me. Like, oh man, when he just said that, my body just like lit up, and I'm like, I feel all these like goosebumps happening. And like that wouldn't happen if I was holding on to something in my mind. Um, or if I was, walking through my backyard and like a hummingbird shot out of nowhere and went into my, face. If I knew that hummingbird was going to come, like it wouldn't have that surprise awe effect like it does. So yeah, I don't know, something struck me about that capacity to be in the unknown, but like in relationship in a way that you're like everything is, yeah, part of this dance. Everything is part of this conversation. There's nothing that's excluded. Um, yeah, which I think is super beautiful, and it's scary too, because so much as our human selves, like we're so afraid of death, of the unknown, of the void, right? Of like really of death. But um to face that, like that mystery constantly, and at least to acknowledge when we're clinging to something and to like let it go over and over again, to be with like that great mystery. Um, yeah, super beautiful. Something there. But
Thinking of when the the being alone and being scared, and um, when we remember that we're all part of, like, we are relatives to the trees and the plants and the earth and the plankton in the ocean, and all of that, but um, you know giving it name, grandmother, ocean, mother earth, grandpa fire, like that does remind us that we're part of something. And I think of like the epidemic of loneliness in our country right now, where we're all like pretending to be connected on our phones all the time and thinking that we're connected in that way, um, and addicted, because the programs were designed for that, the endless scroll and all that. um, but then we have these vacancies in our hearts and our spirits, um, and the more that we can actually get out and remember our true connection. And I mean, we're on a screen here, but we feels like we're genuinely, dropping in and connecting. And yeah, just that's always super helpful to me.
Can't go wrong with soul connection.
Yeah. And just like on the days where you just feel overwhelmed or lonely or whatever, just remembering that you are surrounded by relatives, even when you are physically not feeling that per se. I don't know, does that resonate?
Yeah. Yeah, I think um God, something came to me and then flashed through and left me, but that happens. But it's something about, yeah, the relatives and the back to that co-regulation thing of
Yeah.
like we don't, so much of humanity is like dysregulated, and I think so much of nature is constantly like finding balance. And so to connect, like we have to be regulated if we're in trauma response or we're in, hypo or hyper um activation, then we can't really regulate. So it's like if we can rest enough and like slow down enough um to at least draw our attention to nature. Like I think an attention is like the biggest conflict right now. It's like, where is your attention?
Mhm.
um but if we
Because we're like literally in like hypo energy, right? With everything right now, like as a society.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's that like that slowing down and that attention piece that's the hardest right
Mhm.
now, at least because it feels so survival
Mhm.
based. Yeah.
Yeah. These birds, I don't know if you guys can hear, but these birds are like right above me right now, just like they sound so pretty, like not bickering, but like singing. And it sounds so cool to like, I feel like they're like, we're here with you. We're here with you. I was thinking about El, the Shumash friend and elder Art Cisneros, and I've heard him say like, um, amazing things can happen when you listen. Amazing things can happen when you listen, and each of you works in some version of, therapy, helping, supporting people in that sort of space. And I'm curious if any stories come to mind, either personal or with people that you've worked with, around that concept of when you're able to give yourself the space to listen, or with a client or group that you lead, that would sort of back up that amazing things can happen when you listen.
Hmm.
I mean, I'll just start off for me, the like going back to the basics of the awe of like when I'm listening, and again, not just with my ears, but with my whole experience of this beautiful gift of life and body that I'm privileged to be here with, like the awe of waking up and your first breath and the sun coming up and like, all those things that we sort of take for granted. Like those are amazing things.
I think one thing that jumps out for me, Kimberly, when I think about, I don't know about necessarily, well, a group, but there was a gathering and it was in nature by the fire. And I'm always so amazed at how silence is different in nature than it is in an organic natural environment than an inorganic natural environment. And I mean, what I mean by inorganic, I mean industrialized city space where at nighttime there's lights and there's trains and there's television energy that's flowing through, and there's all the noise. But in nature, the one of the beautiful things about it is that its silence is so loud. Its silence is so loud, and it you feel it. It's alive, and it's like that fresh oxygen that hits your lungs. it allows you to hear your own heartbeat while simultaneously hearing the, you know, the soliloquies of the owls that are there, you know, and but its silence is so the vibration of that. And when I think about being in community or gathering group spaces, the feelings of awe and gratitude and humility that I get just by sitting, grounding, grounding in nature and listening to that loud silence, you know. Was it The Sound of Silence? Who's saying that? That was a song, right?
Yeah,
Simon and Garfunkel.
Ah, yeah.
Paul
I
Simons.
can't believe I whipped that out. I usually can't remember anybody who sings
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
I'm recalling a time of sitting with a 14-year-old girl who was crossing over, holding her hand with one of my hands, holding her father's hand, the three of us, as she was going through her last breaths, and she was struggling and fearful and anxious. And this is in her home, parents' home, out in Stinson Beach by the ocean, Mother Ocean, and we were in silence, meditation, just sending our love into her. And in that silence, I could hear her say, on a soul level, to me, because when each breath came into her, it was and released, it was smaller and smaller and smaller. And when the breath would leave her, we didn't know if there would be another breath. So we were just all really present, listening. Was that her last breath right now? Is this it? And then there would be a pause, and then another breath. Well, that wasn't her last breath. Here's another one. So let's be present for this. So this gradual slowing down for about 45 minutes, and then her soul spoke to me and said, you know, what's happening for me is the same thing that's happening for you. When this next breath leaves you, you don't know if you'll have another breath for sure. There's no guarantee. So be present for this one breath at a time, slowing down, listening. And after about 45 minutes of that, all of us in this really deep place, she was still, it was like it's labor when the mother goes through to bring life in, and it can be labor when the spirit's trying to leave its body. And so that was taking place for her. And it was a cloudy day outside. But it came to me at one point from that listening to just energy from Mother Ocean outside the window. I could hear it, one like wave coming in at a time. So I just mentioned to her I thanked her for the teaching about being present for one breath and at a time with gratitude, and listening to the ocean waves supporting her in her letting go process, because the wave comes across the ocean and releases into the sands. So words came through of helping support her in her letting go, be present for the wave that comes in and let go with release, and surrender into the peace of the stillness when the wave leaves. And just as I was talking to her about this, a beam of light burst through the clouds and just burst through the window and just lit her up. It just lit her up. And she saw it and she got it. And that helped her release into that light peacefully. And she crossed over shortly thereafter, very peacefully. So we're talking about miracles that can happen with and through nature, just when she needed something more than my words, some expression that was coming from a bigger power, bigger place. This beam of light came in and supported her. And all of us, Dad and I and her, were able to just release into it with gratitude for the sacred mystery working that she was surrendering into. And in fact, we were all surrendering into. So remembering, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Andrew, anything you want to add in?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I
But
feel
Andrew, I got to say, man, those antlers are looking good on you.
I was just remembering when we were in England in the forest in the woods with Giles, and we got that great. We were talking about listening to the wisdom of nature, and we all of a sudden that like crazy lightning and thunderstorm came through, and then I don't know if Shareef or Dad, we've told you this before, but then when our cameraman pulled up a weather app, and there was like no clouds or rain anywhere in England, just this one little patch right over where we were working, or where we were listening and filming and talking about listening, and it felt like the sky people were like, you know, thank you, I hear you, I'm letting you know I'm here too. It was really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for people who are listening to this who know who Giles were or what you were doing there, maybe you could just
Yeah, we'll put
explain
it.
to us.
We can put it in the notes here. So yeah,
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I don't know. I just go back to the humility thing and the fact that like the sole intention of this of I guess our film and like this listening space is yeah, just to kind of like surrender our humanity, ego, do all this stuff and just like yeah, I don't even know how to say it, but it's just kind of to like rest back and um just acknowledge like that that something is bigger than us and that um yeah, whether you take it as God or nature or the self or whatever your religious capacity, it's like just this simple acknowledgement. It's like so simple yet so profound, and that like nature can respond so quickly. And yeah, and like it doesn't take much. Like I think part of us is like, oh, we have to change our whole life. And it's like it could just be like a simple first breath in the morning, talk about this tree behind me and like just consciously thinking about my first breath is also the out breath of this tree. Like it's like there's a duh element, but then there's also like, well, yeah, and like that's amazing that this
Mhm.
tree breathed into me and that I get to breathe out and like give something back to this tree in this way of reciprocity that I don't have to do anything. Like there's literally nothing I have to do but breathe and acknowledge and say thank you. Like, and yet like the profoundness and like how much I receive from that is, yeah, in my own nourishment, like that gratitude that just like changes my chemistry. And I can walk through the day sharing that love with the world just because I acknowledge the tree.
Yeah.
It's like, huh.
And imagine if like when kids are like learning in school about that, the oxygen carbon dioxide exchange between humans and plants, and like if there was a little bit of the awe built into the curriculum too, right? Instead of it's just like here's the science over here, but here's the science, um, and the amazingness of it, the awe of that, and there was something you said around how that just like makes you be able to like spread more joy and show up for the people in your life in a more happy, joyful,
Totally. Yeah,
alive
it's
way. It's just
completely
more alive.
selfish
Yeah.
and yet selfless because like it is filling me up so greatly. And by doing that, I get like I don't have to try, but I get to share my beingness because I'm already full. And I think for people that are in like the helping professions or constantly doing and or like really concerned about our world falling apart and running around really quickly trying to fix everything. Um, there might be something right now more in like the resting and the acknowledging and the being than that doing, fixing, trying to make sure the world is going to be okay. Um, so I think that's yeah, interesting.
Interesting listening to your words for me, because yesterday when I woke up and it's part of my morning giving thanks, listening, I said, what, speaking to my soul, I said, what is it you want me to know as I start this day? What is it you want me to know right now as I start this day? And it came back really clear. Let go of doing and just be.
You still have to, you know, get the kids fed and show up, literally and
Yeah.
metaphorically. You got to show up for the people in your life and yourself. But it's that dance of like the trusting and the letting be, and still showing up fully for life, I think.
That really resonates. I think about balance. You know, if one's too heavy, the scale's tipped. If another, and reciprocity, that sacred breath is that balance. And I think about, I think it was Gandhi that said, one must learn to be still in the midst of activity and vibrantly alive in the midst of stillness. Speaking to balance. And, I think about waves musically, waves, ocean, waves, energy, waves, but surfing them requires both the act of movement and action and the act of stillness at times. You have to wait. And then when you see that right wave, you make the move and you stand. And even in standing, you have to find your balance. There's so much listening and attunement, I think, will that stillness to listen, to hear, to attune, to know what to do and how to balance and when to move and when to be still. That balance, that active balance is essential.
Yeah. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time, and it strikes me that all of this conversation, it's like just these little subtleties in how we show up that can make such a big difference in how we're surfing the waves of life, how we're experiencing it. And um, and I guess that's like when I think of what I want to take away from this for myself is just remembering to allow space for those subtleties of how I can show up with more listening in my heart and everything, and how that ultimately then just makes my journey so much richer. Yeah.
I want to just speak to an example of telepathy that just happened that you may or not be aware of. You said a moment ago, I want to be conscious of people's time. And a moment before that, I just looked at my watch because I have to go down to Oxnard and try to find a used car to be able to get up to Mendocino for a retreat this weekend. So I need to take off. So I was just about to say something about that, and you spoke about it. So it's an example of the waves of communication that are happening non-verbally that are always taking place. That's part of the miracle and the mystery of life, that we do have these telepathic abilities that are gifts of grace, and we just experienced one manifestation of that.
All right. Well, as we glad I picked up on that. Anyone want to share any thoughts as we close out? I just feel so much gratitude for you guys sharing this time with me together, and opening this space to share and be of service to each other and celebrate together, and whomever else it may be touching for. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick that we're getting together today, and how much I appreciate being able to see Andrew, you, and Shareef, you, and Kimberly, of course, you, because you had the vision to bring us together here today. And so to me, it's an example of your spirit living in a feminine body container, and you're listening to bring us together today. It's part of listening to nature, the listening to the voice of the feminine, bringing us guidance, in this case, to come together and share what we've shared today is an example of what we need to do on a larger basis, listening to the life-giving wisdom of the feminine, which is in all of us, but especially when it's coming out of those who are living in the female body that goes through the regular cycles of life and more connected because of your cycles, more dramatic than us men have our cycles, but not as dramatic as monthly menstruation. So what's happening today is a manifestation of, Kimberly, you're listening, and then you're speaking to the fruits of your listening to bring us together today, opening a doorway for good medicine to come through all of us that enriches our lives. And if this goes out to others, has the potential to enrich other lives. So gratitude.
Yeah, to be having good men in my life to be showing up with. Thank you guys.
You called us in. We were just sitting out behind the barn smoking some good reefer, and you came in and called us together here.
Um, yeah, just a big thank you for doing all this, Kimberly, for keep for just being you, and yeah, bringing us together, creating community.
All right.
Thank you. All right, and we will probably be back again soon, all of us, and be bringing some other friends and relatives in, and also be doing some in-person listening gatherings that we'll be sharing with you as well. So